Hello and welcome to Next Week Last Night. My name is Stuart Johnson. Thank you for joining me. We got a great show in store for you today, but first, before we get started, I have some housekeeping to do. Now, as you may have noticed, we took a little bit of a break from the show recently. In fact, let me check my notes here. 7 months. Wow. Yeah, that is quite a break for sure. But I have a perfectly reasonable explanation for this. You see, I was in the Senate voting on the COVID-19 relief bill, and that really took up all the time I had these past 7 months. So I am sorry about that, but good news, we managed to push it through in the end. More on that later. The Republicans tried to stall by adding in a last-minute amendment to change the font of the 680-page document from Times New Roman, which is of course often associated with the Roman Empire and Caesar's socialist policy of building entire cities to house his veterans, to Calibri, presumably because that's the font Ronald Reagan used to sign off on Iranian cocaine shipments. I did manage to procure a new piece of equipment in the meantime, as you can see right here. I bought this with the money I got from selling some stuff I took from the Senate, because apparently you can just sell shit you take from the Capitol building on the internet these days. So I decided to pawn Chuck Schumer's balls, since he wasn't really using them anyway. I was going to go with Mike Pence's backbone originally, but it sadly could not be found. Anyway, let's get into the news. Over the weekend, the U.S. Senate passed Joe Manchin's COVID-19 relief bill after a grueling debate that lasted 36 hours straight. Due to certain changes made to the bill, Senate Majority Leader Joe Manchin will now have to send it back to the House of Representatives for approval before it is signed into law by President Joe Manchin. Now, this final version of the bill includes some notable alterations from the one that was sent to the Senate originally, most consequential of which is the proposal to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour being dropped. Despite an impassioned speech by Senator and part-time glove salesman Bernie Sanders, the motion was rejected by both Democrats and Republicans alike. I have here a statement from both parties on the issue. The Democrats have said, "Fuck you, Bernie," whilst the Republican statement reads, hashtag left unity, lol. There was also a long and intense debate regarding the extension of unemployment benefits, with Senator Joe Manchin refusing to sign off on an extension through October, preferring a June deadline. A compromise was eventually reached, with September 6th proving to be the magic date. The turning point apparently came when Senator Tom Carper of Delaware sang an a cappella version of Take Me Home Country Road to the West Virginia Democrat. Meanwhile, White House Communications Director Kate Bedingfield took this as an opportunity to showcase how the Democrats are perfectly capable of pushing through legislation without ending the filibuster. She makes a good point. I mean, all the Democrats had to do was use a legal loophole to circumvent the filibuster entirely before engaging in 36 hours of nonstop debate to push through a bill that not a single Republican voted for. It was almost too easy. But on a serious note, for as much as I like to mock Joe Manchin and Chuck Schumer, really the entire Democratic leadership for their blatant incompetence and embarrassing internal bickering, I do think they deserve some credit for pushing this thing through. I mean, it is a $1.9 trillion relief bill that still includes $1,400 stimulus checks, albeit for less people than it was originally intended for. It also grants $350 billion to state and local governments for the safe reopening of schools. It obviously extends unemployment benefits. It also has $50 billion in aid for small businesses, $20 billion in vaccine distribution, and that's really just the tip of the iceberg. So credit where it's due to the Democrats for sort of kind of getting the job done. Wasn't quite a hole in one in the end, but a hole in 36 hours of brutal masochism. Moving on to the world of sports now, and on Sunday afternoon, Manchester United took on Manchester City in the Manchester Derby and triumphed 2-0. All I have to say on the topic is this. Manchester is red, you bastards! Fuck you, you shit-issing twats! United! 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 Anyway. Whew. Sorry, got a little carried away there. So yeah, between United winning the derby and the Senate kind of doing its job for once, this was turning out to be a pretty good weekend for me. So you just knew some bullshit was going to happen to spoil the fun. Allow me to introduce to the stage Switzerland. Now, yesterday, Switzerland continued its proud tradition of religious intolerance by banning burqas in public places. News that was greeted with joy across the entire Holy Roman Empire as it presents another great step towards ending the scourge of Islam on this great continent that the Muslims are trying to take away from us. And wait a minute, it's not 1250 anymore. Huh. Now look, let me preface this by saying that I have lived in Switzerland. I have many great friends there, and I hold them all in high esteem. But on this topic, I have only one thing to say. What the fuck, guys? I mean, seriously? Banning burqas in public places? Why? What reason could you possibly have other than the obvious reasons that we're all currently thinking of? Now, normally it would be right now that I cut to a clip explaining the situation, but sadly during our hiatus, the show's budget was slashed, and so as a result, well, I'm gonna have to do this the old-fashioned way, I guess, with reading. Here is what The Guardian has to say on the matter. Switzerland will follow France, Belgium, and Austria after narrowly voting in a referendum to ban women from wearing the burqa or niqab in public spaces. Ah, yes, France, Belgium, and Austria. 3 countries famous around the world for their religious tolerance, especially towards Muslims. That's why, personally, when I think of France, I think of the St. Bartholomew's Day Protestant fiesta and the Brussels Jewish Acceptance Party. Of course, you can't even mention Jews without referencing Austria's notorious spiritual leader, Adolf Hitler. So if history has taught us anything, it's that these 3 countries have almost impeccable judgment when it comes to religious tolerance. But anyway, I digress. Let's continue. Here is what else it has to say. So, Switzerland's parliament and the 7-member executive council that constitutes the country's federal government opposed the referendum proposal. They argued that full facial veils represented a fringe phenomenon and instead proposed an initiative that would force people to lift their facial coverings when asked to confirm their identity to officials. Of course, the great thing about a direct democracy is that the federal government really only has about as much of a say on these topics as I do. So, I really don't see what could possibly go wrong with letting a populist majority dictate things. You know, this bill's starting to sound like a pretty bad idea. Let's check in with the pro-ban camp and hear their arguments as to why this bill isn't Islamophobic at all. Here's what the good people had to say on that. Here we are. It says, supporters of the ban argue that it also intended to stop violent street protesters and football hooligans wearing masks, and that the referendum text does not explicitly mention Islam or the words niqab or burqa. You see, now it all makes sense. I'm sorry, you know, this was my bad. My mistake. I hold my hands up. See, I had no idea that Switzerland has such a huge problem with football hooliganism. I mean, then again, it's no surprise when you think about some of the mammoth teams that play over there, like, Grasshoppers and Servette. And of course, who could forget about Young Boys? I mean, really, it's a miracle Switzerland hasn't been engulfed in one giant beer brawl. But all right, fair enough, I guess. Quick question though: when English football hooligans terrorize European cities once every 4 years during the European Championship, do they get this same kind of treatment? My money is on it's coming home, blood. If the Swiss federal government opposed this proposal, I gotta ask, whose idea was it exactly? Well, actually, let's take a look. Oh, hey, look at that. The initiative behind the referendum was launched in 2016 by the Eger-Kingen Committee, an association that also successfully pushed for a vote to ban the building of new minarets in 2009, and which has links to the populist right-wing Swiss People's Party. Of course, what they fail to mention in this article is that the ban on new minarets is really because they are a nightmare for air traffic controllers. So really, it was an issue of public safety. On a side note, what is it with the term People's Party becoming a slogan for right-wing nationalists? I mean, I like to think that most people are not, right-wing, racist, hateful assholes. But then again, maybe that's my problem. All right, fine. It's just, all this football hooliganism bullshit would be a lot easier to swallow if that wasn't the official campaign poster used by the pro-ban side of the referendum. That was their official campaign poster. Oh, stop extremism of Grasshoppers fans. Let's cut the bullshit, because we all know what this is really about anyway. This is about ostracizing an already oppressed minority whom you are more than happy to welcome when they want to spend millions in Swiss banks and hotels, but whom, the minute they try and bring a little piece of their own culture to the table, you label extremists and terrorists. And as for the argument, where is it? It was written in here somewhere. There it is. Religious veils like the burqa or niqab are a symbol of the oppression of women. That's a bit fucking rich, coming from a country who didn't give women the right to vote until 1971. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid is older than a woman's right to vote in Switzerland. So you assholes are the last people who should be telling others and giving them lectures about women's rights. And by the by, if you think this ban will do anything to stop religious extremism, France introduced their version of this ban in 2011. The Paris attacks occurred 4 years after that. Pandering to people's base fears does not constitute protecting them, and it sure as shit doesn't give you an excuse to oppress other people's religious freedoms. We'll be back after the break. This episode of Next Week Last Night is brought to you by the American Red Cross. Please follow the link in the description box below to go to their website and consider making a donation. It's hell on earth out there right now for a lot of people. A lot of really, really bad stuff's going on. So if you have a few bucks to spare, consider donating to a really great charitable cause. Again, the link will be in the description box below. Back to the program now. Thank you. Welcome back. We end today's show with murder of the entertainment variety. Now, the debate surrounding violence in video games is as old as wait, how old is GTA San Andreas again? Anyway, parents around the world are concerned that their children, due to playing violent video games, are being turned into dangerous would-be killers. So let's ask the question: do violent video games make kids more violent? No. That's our show. Thank you for joining me. We'll be back next week. All right, I'm kidding. If high school lit class taught me anything, it's that I have to present arguments for my reasoning. Now, it is difficult to make a case for the pro-violence crowd here without sounding like an old, boomer. Kind of like how it's difficult to say the sentence, I got nothing against black people, but without sounding like a racist. That said, though, I do think it's worth asking, because this is what I've always wondered. Why is it that we never ask this question when movies are concerned? I've never heard anyone say, "Oh, violent movies make people more violent," because we all understand that movies are fiction, and that as such they should not be mimicked in real life. And if they are mimicked, it is the fault of the individual who mimics them, not the fault of the movie. So why is the narrative different when it comes to video games? I mean, is it really as simple as old people not understanding the appeal, or hating what they don't understand? Possibly. Then again, video game industry is bigger than even the movie business. So if this narrative applied to even 1% of young gamers, surely we'd see murders and violence every week. Unless video games are just a convenient excuse by most governments to justify their own failures in education and mental health treatment by pinning tragic events on trivial anecdotes to shift the blame away from themselves. It's quite interesting, actually. It's more common than you might think. Little Timmy didn't shoot up his school because he was bullied constantly and harassed. No, he did it because he played too much Modern Warfare 3, you know? Oh, but public displays of Confederate symbols have nothing to do with violence against black people. All right, that's our show. Thank you for joining me. Before we go, a quick update. We are now doing this show bi-weekly, Mondays and Fridays, as opposed to the once-a-week schedule. Bi-weekly? Why not straight weekly? What is it with you kids and everything being bi these days? Anyway. Like the video, please consider subscribing to the channel if you have not already. We got weekly content coming your way, original shows, movies, sketches, interviews, a whole bunch of really great stuff. I'm really trying to build something special here, but I need your help to do it. So like, comment, subscribe, and tell your friends about this place. And I do read the comments, I promise. That'll be it for me for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you all in the next one. Have a good one.